everyone, it's Mike Anderson here with the 1% Solution and Living Motion Monograms. And today, my friends, I'm going to be giving you guys a little tour of Photoshop Elements. In fact, today we're going to be using Photoshop Elements 15, and I want to start off by saying I am sorry. One thing I did not realize is just how different Photoshop Elements is as opposed to using, Photoshop CC and some of their full kind of full strength versions of Photoshop. But today I found out a whole lot and I am wanted to get this tutorial out ASAP for you guys because after taking some time to go through this thing, I realized that I see where you guys are coming from when it comes to being lost in translation when it comes to the tutorials that are out there right now with Photoshop. So let's fix that today. I want to make this easy, and I think that the reason this is truly just going to be an introductory to Photoshop. In fact, Photoshop Elements. And the reason it's just going to be an introductory is because the first thing to realize and the first thing that is going to make things easy for you is just to understand where the heck things are at. I mean, there's so many little buttons and stuff in this thing. What I'm going to do is this first tutorial for Photoshop Elements, we're just going to cover and go over and take a look at this thing, see how it's set up, and kind of take a look at how you can be able to navigate through the software itself. And then in obviously in future tutorials that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be kind of zoning in on specific items such as how to add drop shadow into your designs, or any projects that you're doing for text, or adding photographs or cropping things, stuff like that we'll cover on other tutorials. But on the channel for Living Motion Monograms, one of the things I want to do is just have a section that you can go to. It's going to be labeled Photoshop Elements. So make sure you look for that on the channel. And that playlist is going to have those tutorials on there just to make things easy for you. So if you're looking to, be able to do something specific, then you can just go ahead and click and watch that video or rewatch the video just to give you a little refresher on those abilities. Because, man, it doesn't matter which version you're using, whether it's Photoshop Elements or Photoshop CC 2017. It's a very powerful program that I think that you can use for a lot more things. I mean, obviously, most people think you use it for photographs, but so much more that you can do with it, and how useful it would be for your business and for even making marketing material and stuff. So let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to go and fire this thing up, and one of the things you're going to notice that might be a little bit different is that this is our main screen here. And when it first gets started, it's going to ask you, what do you want to launch? Now you can turn this main screen off. You can go up here to our little gear icon here, and it's going to say on start, always launch welcome screen, photo editor, or organizer. And we're going to go ahead and hit cancel on that. But down at the bottom here, we also have photo editor, organizer, and video editor. So see how basically the video editor itself is a trial section that they have on here. It's not, that would be using Premiere Elements, which is their condensed version of Adobe Premiere. So we're not even going to worry about that today. We're going to go and fire up our photo editor here. Now, organizer is going to be something else that we'll cover in another tutorial. So photo editor, fire this thing up. And as it pops up here, one of the things you'll notice is different is just the layout itself. So we're just going to go with the basics and kind of start at the top and work our way around this, work our way around the room here, so to speak. So at the top, we've got our file. Click on that, and as you kind of look through some of this stuff, obviously new is going to let you launch a new project. We've got open an existing project you may have already working on, or image that you've already got saved. Open in camera raw. So one of the updates that they did with Photoshop Elements is being able to edit raw photos, which is just a file format for for most DSLR cameras that you can actually capture images in, which just holds a lot more information. So again, photo editing, we won't get too much into that during this beginning tutorial here though. Open recently edited files. This will show you kind of a couple things I was working on: home desktop, YouTube banner. We've got, of course, all the other stuff. Process multiple files, import, export, automation tools. A lot of this stuff may not even be usable to you right now, but maybe in the future. We go on to the next one, edit, and this is where, as we have different, we most edit, most things under the edit tab, you're not going to be able to use unless you have some kind of file open, so don't stress out about that. That's where basically we'll be able to copy, paste, we'll be able to undo changes that we've made or redo them. Let's see, we've got color settings, preset manager, preferences, and so yeah, under edit, what I wanted to show you guys is going to be under preferences. So I'm going to go down to that, and let's click on general. So this is where to begin with, I wouldn't change too much stuff until you kind of start to get a rhythm and get a better feel for Photoshop itself, because yeah, you can always revert back, which under general here, we've got our reset button, which is always nice. So if you think you might have messed something up or not sure what got changed, you can hit reset and it'll bring it back to defaults. I've done that a few times. We've also got, things so under general, our first menu here, we've got a couple different settings. Select move tool after committing text. And so these are just going to be more of, again, preferences. What do you want this thing to act? How do you want this program to act in certain situations? Use shift key for tool switch, zoom with scroll wheel. You know what? I like that because I like to zoom in and out with my mouse when I want to, so that would be helpful there. Enable soft notifications, enable crop pre-selection. And that is when you select, basically when you select crop, it's just going to give an estimate guess of what it thinks you want cropped, but it's not a big deal right now. Saving files. So on first save, ask if original. You can also just have it say save over current file, or always ask. And I usually do always ask just to make sure I'm not saving over maybe a file that I actually want to save. Say like one of the templates or something. I don't want to save over that. I want to save it as a new file. So we got image preview, ask when saving, always save, file extensions. Again, a lot of stuff we really don't have to worry about now, but maybe in a future tutorial. We've got performance, and I also want to do something where we'll have a future tutorial that'll kind of explain some of these settings and what you can do with them, and how to set them up based on the level of computer that you have. The processing power along with graphics. As we can see here on this system, we've got the GeForce 1080 Ti, so it's got like, you can pretty much do anything you want with it. So we've got lots and lots of power for this, and it'll allow you to designate how many megabytes of RAM that will allow it to use at any given time, just to make sure it doesn't crash your system. But so scratch disks, this is going to be basically what majority of what we're going to be saving stuff with. We've got display and cursors, transparencies, again, rulers, units. Basically, I'll show you some cool stuff with the rulers, but you can see that, for under rulers, I've got it set as pixels right now, just because that's usually what I work in when I'm doing design for, say, monograms. Print size, when I'm doing something in print, we have that in inches because I'm usually setting the our work surface for print size, so like 8.5 by 11 for creating handouts for my clients. And then type points, let's see, photo projects and units, we got inches. That sounds good because I don't want to deal with millimeters and centimeters. Print resolution, you can also set your preferences here. New document preset. So print resolution 300, screen resolution, that's usually like 72 is for web work, if you're designing stuff for the web, but I usually bump that up as well to 300 when I'm doing design work though. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK on that. And I'll save that. So next one, we've got image. Again, most of these you won't be able to use unless you have a file open. Enhance, more adjustments for our projects, and layers is something we're going to also kind of show you a few different things about in just a second as well. Select, and keep in mind, select is just what it sounds like. Go to that tab when there's certain things you want to select, maybe in the image or in the file. You can usually find shortcuts there under select. So it could be just a section, it could be a whole a little piece of the photo or image that you want to select. This is going to help you get there. We've also got our filters. So filters are going to be more along the lines of kind of almost like a photo filter for touching up photographs and stuff. We probably won't use a whole lot of those, but we've also got our view, and view is going to be important because that's going to let you activate or kind of deactivate certain elements in our project field. So not stuff that would be saved for the original work, but definitely some tools that are going to be in view and window, which is our next one, that will allow us to work a lot faster and more efficiently. And then help. I visited this page quite a few times, so you may end up visiting that as well every once in a while. But right below the top section here, I want you to notice something. This is one of the first differences between Photoshop Elements and Photoshop, like CC 2017, and that is that they give you some different options. So right here at the top, we've got eLive, we've got Quick, Guided, and Expert. I want you to kind of take a look at how what we have here. And to the left side here, before I start going into explanations, a lot of you guys will probably start off with Quick, and here's why. Usually when you start this program off for the first time, it's going to ask you like a question. What is your expertise or experience using Photoshop? And obviously, if you're just getting started, haven't used it before, everybody goes beginner. And so what it does is by default, it sets it up to launch under Quick, because it's kind of going to give you that guided tour or guided. So even with guided, then all of a sudden, it just kind of gives you push button stuff. But it hides a lot of the features that you end up trying to look for when you're trying to follow along with tutorials. So if you are doing, these are really great options to use if you want to do something fun one day and actually make some, edits on photographs and stuff for an event, because this can make things really, really easy. But for majority of what we're going to be doing together, Expert is what you're going to go for. Okay. And the reason is just all of a sudden you'll notice all the tools on the left side here. I mean, there's a big difference between if we select Quick and they give you so your 6 tools that are available over here, or Expert, where now we've got quite a few more available on this side here. Now let's look at, say, the bottom right over here. We've got here, we can see, well, you know what? We're gonna have to make some adjustments here. I'm gonna let's bump me up here a little bit. I'm gonna be the floating talking head for a second, because I don't want to cover up these down here. And so at the bottom, you guys are going to notice a couple things. And first thing, let's fix the rest of this as well. Go ahead and get rid of our cover here. All right, now we should be able to see it no matter what. Okay, so down at the bottom, we've got, our boxes that say like layers, effects, filters, styles. Up on the right side, we've got just a blank column right now. But if we go to Quick, or guided, all of that goes away. And then just down in the left bottom, then we've got like photo bin and organizer, stuff like that. So we can go back to expert. These are some of the options that pop up here, and I'm going to show you guys what all these mean. So make sure you click on expert, and then you can follow along here. So if we're under expert, to the left side, we've got our menu bar. In the very top section, we've got view. So view is just going to allow us to, view something. And I think, let's get started here. We're going to go ahead and open up a project, and go, let's see here, go to our desktop. Let's open up one of our templates. All right, so now that we've got something open here, let me show you the tools over here. We've got our zoom, which allows us to zoom in and out. We've got our hand tool, which is basically our mover. So whatever layer that we're actually highlighting over here to the right, the hand tool itself. Oh, and I apologize here. The hand tool basically is going to allow you to move around. It won't actually move the layers, but it's going to allow you to move around your kind of entire project. So if you are zoomed in, and I want to go up here to the left, I can kind of move my screen around without actually making changes to my layout. And forgive me, because believe me, I'm kind of learning this along with you guys too, because there are some subtle differences, some things that I want to point out as well, that if you're switching between the two versions of Photoshop. Now, what I was trying to get at was the next one down under select. That is what is going to allow us to make changes and move things around when it comes to our layers and our design elements. So if we've got our little arrow here, then that's our move tool, and that will allow us to actually move these layers around. Nice thing is that anything we select, it's going to be highlighted, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit to show you this one. But then we've got our background here, which we see the dotted line around the outside. That means we've got it selected. If we go into our design elements, then I can select the top, our little design elements for the top and bottom here, or just our frame. And this would be a good idea to kind of show you guys, since we have something open. Let's go ahead and take a look at the right side here for a second. And these are obviously our layers. Anything with a T on it, that's just designated, hey, that's text. So that would be one of our text blocks. If we see, our kind of a blank area here, that's just some of our other design elements. You can also see where we can lock and unlock these layers here to be able to either make changes or not. But then you also see this little eye, and anything you hover over is going to hover over it long enough, and you're going to be able to, it'll give you a little hint of what it's going to be about. But this eye lets you turn that layer on and off. So that way you don't have to delete things if you're not sure if you're going to keep it or not, but you just want to see what it looks like. For example, like the frame. We can zoom out. Here's our design, but maybe we want to see what it looks like without the frame. We can just turn the frame off and go, ooh, wait a minute. And if that's the case, I'm going to have to make a little change here, because our background isn't really filling the entire area. And that kind of brings us to our very first difference between Photoshop Elements and Photoshop, say, CC 2017. And that is how your resizing works. So with Photoshop Elements here, you can grab any one of these corners, and as you make changes, it's going to maintain that aspect ratio. So it's going to make it not only bigger lengthwise, but also or horizontal and vertical at the same time. Now, in order to do that in Photoshop, say CC 2017, usually what we have to do is like hold down our Shift key. And it's just the opposite with this. If we were to, let's see, let me go ahead and make this the right size. And then you'll notice down here we've got kind of a yes and no check mark. That means, yeah, we want to accept this change. So in Photoshop CC 2017, in order to maintain that aspect ratio as we're making it larger, we'd have to hold down our shift key while we make that move. So, but in Photoshop Elements, if we click on this and hold down the shift key and start to make that move, all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. Now we lose that aspect lock. And so that's what shift does. So it's just the opposite as what it is in CC 2017. So we'll go ahead and hold that there. If we wanted to bring an element back, say that frame, then all of a sudden we can bring that back by, just turning that eye back on. Or just take, we can take certain elements in and out of this design. Just make the black background. And you'll notice the reason on this particular design, the reason I have the black background in there behind it is because if I turn the black off, you'll notice, wow, that texture is really, really light. You can't really see it. And that's because to get this effect as a nice background, what I did was, you'll see up here under opacity, I've got it turned way down to like 45%. If that was up at 100%, all of a sudden you see how much more bright it is. But I think that the names and stuff start to get lost when you're working with other whites in there. So perfect. Okay, so we'll bring this back in here. So off to the right side, we see our different layers there. And then we'll go back to our left side and continue on with the introduction of our little tools here. Next to our move, we've got our selection marquee tool. And this is going to allow you to select certain areas. So if I wanted to, select something in a box here, then we can do that. And then we've got our lasso. This is our also a selection tool. And this can be just kind of freelance, but if we wanted to work our way around something, this allows us to do that. Now, each one of these tools is going to have some different options to it, which we'll go over once we finish going over where these are. Next one is our Magic Wand tool. And I can't wait to do a tutorial on this because this is one of the most useful tools that is in Photoshop on any version. And it's once you get the hang of it, it's a huge time saver. Now below that, we've got our enhancements. So we've got things like this is our red eye removal tool. We've got our spotting healing brush, and again, this is mostly to enhance photographs. Our smart brush, clone stamp, blur tool, and our sponge tool. Again, we'll be kind of covering those in probably different tutorials on how to use those. Down below that, we've got draw, which you'll probably use a lot more often than the other ones when it comes to designing stuff for text and everything. And that would be like our paintbrush, our erase tool. We've got our paint bucket, which is an overall kind of, if we've got a section highlighted, for example, I'm going to go ahead and let's create a new layer here. Just not going to be really that important right now, but I want to really take this away really quick in case when we're done here. But we want to highlight a section. Our paint bucket will allow us to kind of apply a color to, or something to that entire box that we select. So, and let me go ahead and turn that one off. There we go, back to normal. And get rid of our selection. So we got our paint bucket, and then gradient, our gradient tool. This is one of those tools where if we select it, we'll activate our add extra layer here. This could not use this gradient tool because the pixels in the layer set cannot be edited without simplifying the set. Well, yeah, we can do that. Let's go with background here. And that's going to allow us to do kind of gradient effects there. So from left, right, up, down, however you apply this tool. And then we've got our color picker tool. This is kind of one of those things that's really fun where if anything you've got open in Photoshop, if you're looking for a very, very specific color from like a sample, then anything you touch with this thing and click on, it's going to give us that color. So there's white, there's black, kind of a gold color. Next, we've got our rectangle tool, which is, I believe, of creating our kind of rectangles in color. And then we've got our text tool, which allows us to make an additional, say, text layer. Layer. And we'll notice here that I'll say yes. You can't see it. And that's mainly because off to the right side here, you'll see that, remember, Photoshop, we're working with layers. And layers are just going to be in order. So the best way to understand them is kind of like layers of a cake. Whatever we see on top is going to be on the top. Anything, say, we've got our background here at the bottom, but the reason we can't see text right now is because if you look to the right, you'll notice this new layer is underneath our design layer, which is our looks like our picture frame. So if we went up by 1, all of a sudden now we can see it. And it's not the best color to see it, and we can easily change that by changing our color down here as well. Purple is going to be very noticeable, I'm sure. Yeah, it pops up there. All right. So we've got our text, and then next one is our pencil tool, and that's kind of used for doing more lines and stuff, or freelance. If you're working with a tablet, then it could be extremely useful. Now down below that, we've got modify. This allows us to do our cropping tool, our recompose tool, the content aware move tool, and straighten tool for, I'm guessing, straightening things out, right? Exactly. So we've up to the left side there, we've got a lot of tool options, but one of the things I want to also show you is as you click through these, for example, if we wanted to say, let's do this. We're going to open up. I'm not going to save anything from there. Let's open up another one. All right, so we've got one of our designs here. And so off to the right, we can take a look and notice that we do have a text layer. And I think it's going to be better is let's do something with more than one, just one text layer. So this has a few. So to the right, anything with that T is a text layer. And this one does not have any graphics. So we're going to try. There we are. This one will be a great one to work with. So on this design, we've got graphics and we've got our text, as well as our background layer here. So if we want to select some, let's start with our text. First one we've got is Stephanie here at the top. Now off to the right side, if you double click on the T, it's kind of a shortcut to select all the text in that layer. Now that will also automatically select our text icon over here off to the left side. And then the next thing to do is look down here at the bottom left. This is going to show you our options for text. And so as you change tools, these options are going to change. And you'll notice that if we go from, say, the text to something like what I was talking about earlier, our magic wand tool, now all of a sudden this changes from our text options to our magic wand options. And that could be everything from like contiguous or anti-aliasing here, or sample layers, stuff like that, and tolerance that we'll look at here in a second. But we'll go back to text, and if you're using just the tools on the left side here, you can select the T and then select which layer you want to work on. The other thing to keep in mind is you'll notice that like if my little designator is out here on the left side, there's a box around it. That means that it's not focused in on any one of the layers that we already have. That would actually create a brand new layer for, say, new text. As I get closer, that box disappears and it's just our indicator here. So now if I click, it's going to select that layer. And you can do that with any one of the layers down here. But once you select a layer, then what you would have to do is either select the other layer. Say if we want to work on William now, we can just come over to the right and select William and double click on the T again. Or you can come off to the left side here. If we've got Stephanie already selected, then you can either just kind of select something else like with the selection tool, and then go back to our text tool, and then come back up here and be able to select that layer again. So usually it's easier to use the shortcuts off to the right side. So we've got Stephanie selected. Let's see what our options are. Down here we can, first box is our font, and that is going to be from any one of our little font families here. If we wanted to, say, scroll through fonts while we're designing, we can highlight everything, highlight the font name, and using our scroll wheel on the mouse, just start to kind of scroll down, and it's just going to go through these one at a time until we see something we end up really liking. So that'll allow you to make some of those other changes there. There we go. Let's go with that one, Berlin. Again, we'll highlight it again and see what our other options are. Here now we can also see that for this font, it's just pretty much in bold here. You'll notice that some fonts will have these options and some do not. So as we go to something else, now we've got Berlin Sans. Let's go with something completely different. Like Arial Black is a very, very general font. It's pretty much used in every program, and it's pretty much comes on every system too. So this will be a good one. Now with Arial Black, we'll also have some other options. We want just black as in regular. Do we want it bold? Bold italic by itself. Regular, there's regular, that kind of makes it look a little more skimpy. Narrow bold brings it in. Narrow italic. And this sometimes gives you some other options for the font itself. Next to our options there, we've also got size, and that's just, again, our points. So as we go up, you can make the font size itself go up and down. You also see another shortcut here is if you click on and highlight the point for the font size, then you can use your mouse and actually scroll up and down to change the size. Or just the left side of that, you'll notice that if you hover over it, it's going to look like two little arrows. And if you click there, then hold down, move your mouse to the left or right, that's going to basically scroll up and down in font size as well. If you want to do something more quick. And then we've got some of our other options here, like bold and italic, just right here off to the right side. You can also select whether you want it to be kind of left and as far as alignment left, center, or to the right. I usually do things centered if we're working with a centered monogram design. And then you can also have our text orientation. So that would go up and down and left and right there. But you also have some different options to the left side. So here's our vertical type tool. That allows us to kind of create a new alignment. So anything we do new now, say text wise, now it would type in that vertical. So get rid of that. Just make sure, there we go. And so these are just for new text, not necessarily changing what we've already done. Perfect, okay. And then just below that, we've also got some other options here. We've got our photo bin, and this kind of shows us different things that we've been working on, projects that we've had opened here. You can either show file select an organizer or show open files. These are the actual ones that we have open right now. So kind of a quick launch. If I want to go see and go to something else, and I can also select it here. We got our tool options here, and that's what we were working with whenever we select something on the left side here. You've got your quick access to, say, undo. Like I said, we changed Stephanie to a different font. If I hit undo, it's going to change it back. And undo again, And so this just scrolls through until we get back to our original, what we had to begin with. We've also got rotate. This is our rotate, and that is for our kind of whole entire project there. And then we've got layout. So column and rows and columns are default here. This is just how things are set up as far as our work area. So there is our columns, and since we have multiple files open, this can show us our multiple designs. So if you're working and trying to drag something, say like from this design, if we want to drag one of our text layers from this one, we can just click on this box, come up here to date, select that layer, and drag it to whatever we want it to appear in. So boom, now it appears over here on the left side. The other option, if you're working with a layout that is more generalized, our default layout, and that means that our tabs up here at the top is how we navigate. Let's go ahead and get rid of this layer here that we just drug in. Now, if you wanted to still find something, ooh, I want this layer in my other file, then you can still go ahead and find that layer in our find that layer that we want over here on the right. And if you click on it and start dragging it over, you can drag it to the tab that you're actually working in. And just don't let off on your mouse until you figure out exactly which one you want it to go to, and then come down and go ahead and just place it in here, because then we can go ahead and position it. Maybe we wanted to change that style of date from what the other one was, slightly larger. There we are. So that'll allow you to kind of drag things in around to it, or drag things around from one file to the next, or say top and bottom here. All columns. Like as we get rid of stuff, it'll just resize. There and there, we've got our two files here. So that's our layout. And then we've got loading elements organizer workspace here. So this is one of those where I'm going to probably cover these options on another tutorial for you, just so you guys understand those ones as well. So we've got those set up. Now that we have something open though, I want to show you also some of these. We go back to our top area. And that is where the file and edit and image and stuff are. So let's go ahead and take a look at layer, because now we've got something open. We've got layers to work with. Now all these options are all of a sudden able to work with them. So now with this, we can go ahead and hit like new. So if we wanted a new layer, if I'm working in, instead of just putting all the text in one specific layer, I'll usually have them set up where I'll have my different texts in different layers so that I can actually move them around separately just to get them in the right, perfect spot. So if names are different sizes or something and I want to line this up completely centered, then I can use those little guidelines up here. So then we've got layer, let's see, delete layer, duplicate layer. We've got new fill layer for like solid colors, gradient patterns, stuff like that. Hide layers, merge. So if we're working with something where, say, our names, everything's exactly how we want it, but let's say we wanted to resize. We're gonna go ahead and change the size of this date here. Just too small. That date's got 3 names in there again too. Go ahead and just center this out for a second. Say, and then if say we're able to get this exactly how we want it for a design, and we wanted to be able to control everything. One of the things we can do is like highlight all of our text and say highlight everything except for our background layer, And if we go to layer, that allows us to, start to merge stuff. So we can flatten image, which would flatten all layers and just make it one layer. But we wanted to, merge these specific layers. Now, all these are going to be, stay completely the same size as, corresponding with each other. So now when we start to resize, let me select this, our design, let's say I want to fill more of the space. This, with all these layers, the benefit is that now all of a sudden we control everything all at the same time. The drawback is you can't, once you merge these layers, you cannot make changes to our to like the text. So you just want to make sure those, you either save this before you make that, before you merge those layers as a different file name. So if we could start to undo this and come back to all of our layers, the other option would actually be to, select the top layer we have and the bottom layer while holding shift, and that allows us to select that whole row except for a background. And once those are selected and we start to resize, then it's going to go ahead and maintain kind of the aspect ratio on all this. So things don't change except for all together. So there we go. Got that. The other thing I want to show you guys here to kind of get you started here is let's go ahead and look at window. This window is at the top here, allows you to turn on and off, say, our elements of what we can see. So, and also view. So view is the first one. Let's go over that. And that's going to show you, say, you saw those rulers there. And if we go to view, that's one of the options. So we've got grid, and that'll show you a grid on our work surface if we wanted to kind of, just line things up. So when you save the final file, it's not going to show these grid lines. This is just for while we're doing our work. And then let's see, under view, also we'll get rid of the grid lines and go to rulers. So rulers is what's really, really helpful. As we can see, this design is set up as 1920 pixels across by 1080 pixels tall. And that's for kind of, like I said, the design work when we're working with HD for video projectors. And so at the top, you may run into something where it's like, oh, this is in inches. Well, you just right click on, once you have the ruler activated, if you right click on it, it gives you those options to be able to change that. We want it to say pixels, and we know that half of 1920 is going to be 18,950 and 960. So we've got, that is 1,000. As we zoom in, that ruler is also going to zoom in. There's 950 and there's 960. So there is our center. And then in order to make those lines, it's really easy. If you want a horizontal line, to go ahead and just click on the top ruler and drag down while holding down your click there. Half of our vertical is 1080. So half of that would be 540. So we come to your 5 right about here. And then as we zoom in, that ruler is also going to change. So, ooh, yeah, it was right about dead on. So now that we've got our crosshairs there, we know exactly the center and what we're working with. So if we select, William there, and those boxes pop up, hey, now we can easily center those names. Same thing with Stephanie. It's a little bit off center there. We'll make changes to that. And what about our and symbol? That's also off, so we can make those adjustments. If you want to make have other guidelines, like I use guidelines all the time for aligning stuff up, so you can just click on the top and drag it down to wherever you want those to be. And again, when you save this as, say, a JPEG or something, these lines are just for when you're doing your work. They don't actually save on the file itself. They will save in your Photoshop file for coming back and coming back to it later, but it doesn't show in your final artwork. So those lines are very, very useful there. So we've got view, we've got our zoom in, zoom out, show our print size, fit on screen, and then window. So window allows us to turn things on. We've got our layers off to the right side here. And that's also check marked off. So if I select that, all of a sudden those go away. And you can play with those to see which ones you use the most. If we add on like styles just show some of our different options. And you're gonna see a lot of these windows and options that we use here. History pops up here. You can also just turn the window off by go ahead and closing that window out. And then look down here towards the right side. This is the final thing we'll cover during this opening basics. And down here, it's going to show you a lot of what we talk about, say layers, effects, filters, graphics. So when I add bevel and emboss in, we can actually see up here under where Stephanie is some of that bevel. And these are, I add these in on some of these designs just to add some depth to the design. Maybe you want to adjust that, because as you make, say, that font bigger or smaller, you're going to want to probably make some adjustments to, say, the bevel and emboss, or maybe even the drop shadow if you can see the drop shadow. And so if we're going to find our layers here. I'm going to click in that lower right. Oops. Turn that back on. And we're going to work with Stephanie. So we're going to double click on her name, and that highlights it. Okay, we've got that selected. And then down here, we can go to the next one, which is effects. And that's going to show us all the effects that are available here. And you can, up here at the menu, we can drop this down. You can show just the simple options. And it shows you panels, texturing, seasons. A lot of these, again, geared towards photographs, which is not a big problem. And then you've got filters, again, photographs, or changing these to create different textures. These must simplify. We're not going to do that right now, but as we go to styles, now this is what allows us to see what else is on here. So we've got bevels, we've got drop shadows, image effects, inner glows, inner shadows, outer glows. These end up being very, very useful when, say, outer glows. If we select outer glow, now all of a sudden we've got, see what it is that we can, play with here. And as you select these, then you can either start to make those adjustments to them. These are all just presets. Or you can turn these off. I'm going to scroll out a little bit here so we can see the whole thing. And down here at the bottom, if I wanted to undo that, undo. There we are, back to normal here. And then we've got, whoops. Let's go back. So back to styles. We know that there's a bevel and emboss on here. So if we go to bevels, this shows us some of our simple outlines here. And there's, if we wanted a, oh, that's why I'm on the wrong layer itself. So let me come back here. We're going to go ahead and make sure that by selecting layer in the lower right side, we've got Stephanie selected. The other thing is that you can see if there is an effect already associated with that layer. If you see this little effects next to their layer name and double click on that, what's going to happen is it's going to open up a dialog box for those particular style settings. So we've got drop shadow. We can't see the drop shadow because we've got a black background. So that's not going to make much of a difference. But down below that, we've also got our bevel. And if we turn it off by unchecking it, you can see the difference between Stephanie and, say, William down here. Turn it back on here. And then this is where you make those adjustments. So you can highlight this and just scroll with your mouse. and either make that larger or smaller and see what's going to look best for the work you're doing. You can change the direction. So right now it's set to up, but if we go down, it gives it just a little bit of a different look to it. So we've got bevel there, and we're going to keep that about 7. As we scroll, let's see. Let's not put the box there. And you also see some other stuff simple, like here's our glow. So you can see that if we activate that, we've got inner glow, we can activate it. Let's say outer glow will show up here. So we've got a little bit we've got a box over here where we can set the color. So we wanted a white glow, and opacity, want it to really stand out. You just turn it to about 78 here. And then how about our size? So as we scroll down in size, then that just gives us kind of a white little glow to it there. The bigger, larger the size, the more it's going to spread. And then you may want to back down our opacity on that as well. We'll turn that off there. Another one that we end up using a lot is stroke. And with stroke, that gives us the ability to make, like, say, an outline. So if we wanted to turn this white as well and do a white outline to it, we're going to go ahead and do either inside, center, or outside is where this outline is going to be. Right now it's set to 1, but as we go up, now there's that white outline that pops up. And this is very useful when you're doing, like, say, word designs with darker colors, deep purples, deep blues, stuff that's going to be hard to see. Might be useful to put an outline on it. Or if you're working on, say, a white background and you've got, same thing, dark colors, you wanted to put maybe a black outline, or a very light color, say yellows and stuff, and you wanted an outline on it, then you could do it this way as well. So hopefully that is kind of just to get you started, guys. I just wanted to show you some of the different options. Again, it's not a whole lot of training in this one, but it was just to get you familiar with just the layout of Photoshop elements. We'll have, make sure you check out the channel, Living Motion Monograms here on Facebook, and then also check out our Facebook groups for more information. Very, very useful. Make sure on Facebook, look for Living Motion Monograms, and also our 1% Solution Facebook group as well. Just ask to be a part of the group. We'll get you guys signed up in there, and just we'll accept your invitation there. So, if you haven't already and you found this video useful, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Definitely helps us out and lets us continue getting more content out there to you. If you have suggestions on tools that you'd like to see covered, say for even Photoshop or anything else, make sure you leave some information in the comment section there. That way we know what to work on next, so we can get you the help ASAP on that stuff. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you on the next stream there. So we will see you guys soon, and thanks for tuning in.